Hi guys, today I have another first impression coming at you, and today we are going to be trying out a new to me brand. They were so kind to reach out to me on Instagram asking me if I wanted to pick up some stuff from their site, and of course I said yes because they had some cute stuff and I wanted to try it. So the brand that I'm talking about is called Makeup Maniacs Cosmetics. Is it cosmetics? I think it's just Makeup Maniacs. I could be wrong, but it's Makeup Maniacs. And this is the palette that I chose. When I first saw this, I thought that this was a new palette, but apparently they had this 2 years ago. It sold out and then it just came back in stock again. So it is like, I guess, new now because a lot of people probably didn't know about it. So this is the Underground Candy palette, and this is why I ended up picking this up, because me and candy, we go hand in hand because I love me some sugar and I also love me some food themed palettes, especially when it contains sweets. So this is what the palette looks like. It is really, really cute. I will say it's a little too big for what I normally go for in palettes, but I feel like I also need to be a little bit better at just not being so picky when it comes to very large palettes, because the reason why I don't like large palettes myself isn't because I feel like they're too big and that they're too overwhelming. It's simply because I don't want to take on the task of reviewing a big palette, because it's just so much more work. So if you guys are okay with me like not doing 10 looks if I do buy a big palette, or like do so many looks that I feel like I have like a super good review for you, if you're okay with me just kind of playing around with larger palettes, I wouldn't mind buying larger palettes, to be completely honest. It's just that I don't like reviewing big palettes because it's so many shades and I'm never gonna have a chance to use all of them unless I do so many looks, which I just can't do that with all the palettes that I buy, which is usually why I avoid big palettes. But like I said, if you guys are okay with me kind of just playing around, if I do somehow end up with a large palette like this and you're okay with it not being like the most thorough review, then I wouldn't be opposed to, you know, getting more big palettes. So just let me know if that is okay. So like I said, this is what the palette looks like, and I think this is a really, really cute kind of fall color story. And that was another thing that drew me to this, because there's some very, very dark, yummy mattes in here, and I feel like those are going to go very nicely with some of these warmer tones. So that's definitely like the area that I want to play in today. So I did swatch this palette, and I will say that it's a very interesting formula. Like, the shimmer formula in this is unlike any other shimmer formula that I've ever felt. And after I was done swatching, I couldn't really put my finger on what it was that kind of threw me for a loop. So I took a look at the ingredient list in the back, not that I really know that much about ingredients, and it says it has synthetic wax in it. And it was one of the things that as soon as I read that, I was like, yes, they do feel kind of waxy, and they have kind of like a bit of a, how would I say this? They almost have a little bit of give to them. Not a give, but they almost don't want to properly spread out like a normal shimmer would. Like it has a little bit of resistance to it. Like you really have to work it in. That doesn't go for all of them, but some of them I definitely felt that with. And there's also quite a big inconsistency when it comes to the shimmers in the palette, like formula wise. I especially felt that with some of them, that they were very hard pressed into the pan and they didn't really want to like get picked up on my fingers. Almost like they got hard pan without getting hard pan. Especially the green shimmer that I swatched, I felt like that one was very, very hard to just get anything up on my fingers. But there are a lot of beautiful shimmers in this palette, and the mattes felt really nice, like really, really nice. It felt kind of similar to Kaleidos' mattes, honestly. Like they just felt very smooth and buttery and silky. So I'm very excited to try those. I'm curious to see how the shimmers are going to perform, because I don't know, they just felt like not like other shimmers, if that makes any sense. It probably doesn't because you haven't felt them, but I'm super curious to see how they're going to perform on the lids. And I also did pick up a highlighter that I wanted to try just because I thought that this was so cute. So this is the highlighter that I went with, and if you can see the imprint in this, it basically says off, and I laughed when I saw that, and on top of it, it's a really, really cute color. So I do want to just apply this. And also when I picked this out, she asked me if I wanted this to be scented. So of course I said yes, and one of the options were pumpkin spice. And it smells so good. It smells really nice and sweet. I don't know if I would say I can really smell the spice in it. Like I don't know. It smells very sweet, and it almost has that pumpkin spice up, but not really. So I'm gonna go ahead and apply this because I have already done the rest of my face. So I'm gonna go in with my referral number 16 brush, which is a very big eyeshadow brush, but I like to use it for my highlighter. That is actually really nice. That is a very wearable but still intense pink highlighter. And for me, it's very hard to find kind of pinky highlighters that look good on my skin because a lot of them are just too icy, but I feel like the color of this is really, really nice. It doesn't have that white cast to it. You know what? I really like that. So far, that was a lot on the nose. But so far, we're off to a very good start. I really like that. So let's go ahead and test out the palette. I'm gonna go ahead and prime my eyes with my, what do I want to use? I guess I will use my Smashbox primer. I was gonna use my Natasha Denona primer, but since I had some issues with that with my Kaleidos review, I don't know what happened there with that purple shade in that palette, but I figured I will use my Smashbox one today because it is like my most reliable primer. But I also feel like I'm running out of this one, which is why I don't want to keep buying this because I've run out of this primer so quickly. There's just like no product in here. There's like 3 mils, I think, which is absolutely ridiculous. It's nothing and it's really expensive. Now let's see if I'm able to bend this backwards because I always do that with my palettes. Sometimes I've broken them, but for the most part, it turns out pretty good. So it does have a mirror, as you can see here. And I think where I'm gonna start is I'm going to, should I go light to dark or dark to light? I feel like we should put these to the test and go light to dark. So I'm gonna start with the yellow, which is called Schmallow. I love that. Picks up a lot on my brush. I did tap it off a little bit because it does have some kick up in the pan. Gonna use this as my transition shade here and see how that ends up looking. I think I'm just gonna take this on my top lid. I'm not sure if I want to pull it underneath my eye yet. I want to kind of just do the top first and see where we end up because I do want to try as many colors as possible since, like I said, this is quite a large palette and it's also a first impression. So this is going on the eye very nicely. I really like the color of this. It's maybe a little bit sheer to start off. I'm gonna try to see like just how opaque I'm able to build this up, but it's sticking nicely to my eye and it's also blending out very well. It is taking a little bit of time to just build it up to be the opacity that I want it to be, but I find that to be the case with most kind of yellowy shadows. I will say this is leaning a little bit more orange than yellow, but it's still, I would still call this a yellow, or maybe it's an orange. I'm not really sure, but whatever it is, I do like it and I think it's a really, really nice color. So I'm gonna move down from my referral number 14 to my referral number 13 and I'm gonna grab, which one do I want to deepen this up with? I think I'm just gonna go straight in with this brown and then I'll deepen it up just a little bit in the outer corner with this very dark green, or maybe even this one, but I'm gonna start with this. I don't like layering too many mattes in my crease because that's when shadows tend to just stop sticking, so I prefer not to have more than 2 in my crease and then 1 in my outer corner if I can avoid doing any more than that. So I'm gonna use this in my crease here, and this one is called Pinot 1R. That's really funny. So like I said, gonna put this in my crease a little bit lower down than I put the transition shade. So I did pull this quite high up. I'm probably gonna have to go back in with that yellow because story of my life, I can't help myself. I always need my darker shades to like go above the hood of my eye so that I can properly see them when my eyes are open, because I just find that to look the most flattering. So sometimes I end up covering up the transition shade, which is why I don't really use transition shades that often. I'm gonna deepen this up with, what did I want to use? I know I could use both of these. Like this is more of a very cool toned brown leaning a little bit olive, and this is more of a darkish tealy foresty green. So I really could go in with both because I think that they are dark enough that they're not going to make anything look too muddy. So since I do kind of want to play with some of these greens on my lid, I think that's what I want to do. I think I'm gonna grab this one, which is called Walk of Shame, and I'm not going to use a lot of this. I'm just going to put it in the outer corner of my eye and then blend it very gently into my crease on the outer portion. I don't think I want to take this all the way through my crease. So I'm first starting by just patting this on the outer corner where it is that I want it to be. And then I'm gonna start using very small circular motions here to just kind of bring this, I would say about halfway through my crease or so. I just want this to be like my outer corner deepening shade. And I feel like this is layering quite nicely here. I'm not mad at this at all. That looks really, really nice. This shadow almost looks black on the eye, which I find it to pull a little bit more green in the pan, but again, I'm not mad at it because I would rather a shadow look darker on my eye than in the pan than not be dark enough for my liking, because I know I keep repeating myself, but I love me some dark mattes. So this is really hitting the spot. I think this looks really, really nice. So I think I'm also going to take this a little bit underneath my eye just so we can kind of connect that outer corner shade with the lower lash line. I'm not going to pull this all the way across here either. I do just want this to be like my deepening shade to add some depth. So I'm just going to put a little bit of that just right here, and then we'll find a different shade that I can use on the inner portion. And I find this to be a really good way to kind of make your eye look come together a little bit more, is to take your outer corner shade and wrap it around, because that way you just get a bit of a better blend like on the outer edges of your eye. I'm gonna go back in with the yellow shade and just kind of bring that back a little bit. Just gonna take that over the edge right here. And I'm also gonna take a little bit of the brown as well. I do feel like I have to work a little bit extra with these shadows to really get them to do what I want them to do, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It just depends on what it is that you like in your eyeshadows. So I might have to blend a little bit extra up here after I'm done, but let's go ahead and go in with some of these shimmers. So what do I want to use? I was originally going to use this one, but after swatching it and like trying to pick anything up, like it is just so hard to get it out of the pan. It is so hard pressed that I don't feel like using it, because all of the other shimmers felt a lot looser in the pan. So I feel like I'm just gonna have a better time with those. I'm thinking I want to do something a little bit dark on the outer edge here. So maybe I'll use a little bit of either the purple or the blue. That could be kind of fun. I could also use this one. I think I want to end with the yellow in the inner portion, and I maybe want to use a little bit of this. So what if I use the blue? Those are going to blend quite nicely in together. I could also use this one, but I think I'm going to first take a little bit of this blue. This is a more satiny shade, so since I am going to use this more just to kind of merge the edge between the shimmer and the matte, I don't mind it being a satin. I am going to spray it a little bit though, just with some Fix Plus, so we can see how intense this really is. So I'm going to place that basically in the middle of my lid, more on the outer portion here. I'm not going to use a lot of this. I'm just going to take a little bit, which is why I'm using a big brush, which doesn't make sense at all. But I'm going to just blend this gently into the kind of black shade that we have in the outer corner here. Like I can almost feel that kind of waxy resistance when trying to put them on the eyes as well. It's almost like I need to press my brush onto my eye a little bit harder just to be able to deposit the color properly, because it won't leave my brush otherwise. It's such an interesting formula, but it does look really nice on the eye. I will say this looks better on the eye than it did swatched out, but I do have to kind of work with it to be able to really blend it and maneuver it where it is that I want it to be. All right, next up for the rest of the shimmers, I am going to put down some glitter primer just because I want to see if I'm able to really make these shimmers pop. So let's start off with, I was gonna say this, but I am a little bit tempted to use this one, but I think I'm just gonna use this one and this one. So I'm gonna first take this, which is called Gold Digger. And this one picked up very nicely on my brush. I'm gonna place that next to where I put down the blue. This one's a little bit darker than what I was expecting, but now that I look at it in the pan, it does kind of look the same in the pan too. So just gonna blend that into the blue here. I am going to take it over the blue a little bit. Again, I feel like I'm having a little bit of a hard time just like spreading out the color just because of like the consistency of it. It's almost like it sticks to exactly where you put it and it doesn't want to move any further unless you use a lot of pressure to really like, I don't know, spread it out. So I do feel like they look good on the eyes. It's just taking quite a bit of time to get them to look the way that I want them to look. I think I'm gonna have to go back in with that blue a little bit because maybe I pull this out too far, but I just wanted to make sure that I get a nice gradient here because I'm also going to pull the next shadow over this one quite a lot so that they blend nicely in together. So for the inner portion, I'm gonna take the shade called Discoteca. discoteca. That's how I would say it in Norwegian. Discoteca, I guess. Discoteca. That's such a weird word. I've never said that before. So that is the gold shade. I'm gonna take that in the front portion of my lid. Again, it looks really nice on the eyes, but I just feel like I need to use like a lot of pressure to really press it in and like move it around where it is that I want it to be. This is such a unique and interesting shimmer formula. I don't think I've ever tried anything like it. It's gotta be the wax or whatever is in it. Like, I could be completely wrong, but it just feels waxy. Have you ever tried a waxy eyeshadow before? So interesting. I mean, like I said, it does look really nice, so I'm not mad at like the result that I'm getting. It's just, it's so weird to work with. So I think for underneath my eye, I'm gonna take a little bit of this blue. I'm just gonna put that in the middle of my lower lash line. And then I'm gonna grab a little bit of this green here, which is called $3 bill. I will say it picked up a lot better on my brush than it did on my finger. Just gonna put that in the front portion of my lower lash line, and then I'm gonna take a little bit more of that second brown that I used in my crease and just wrap that around just so I get a little bit of a better blend down here. So I think this is where I'm going to leave it. I think the blends are looking okay. Not my favorite look I've ever done, but I think if I put some kind of a bright green in my waterline or something like that, it's going to look really nice. So I'm gonna finish off, I'll come back, I'll show you the look, and we can talk a little bit more about this palette. So I think this is going to be the completed look. In my waterline, I used the Lethal eyeliner in Equalize. I've said it before, but I do have a code with Lethal now. I will have it on the screen. It's not an affiliate code. I don't make any money if you use it, but it will help you save some money if you want to buy something from Lethal. And Lethal is an amazing brand, which is also why I'm using one of their lipsticks today. They sent this over not that long ago. This one is in the shade Quest. This is a beautiful, beautiful orange. I love this, and I think with this crease color, it's just perfect. It's so fall. It's just so pretty. I really like the formula on this too. They go on so creamy and smoothly, but they do dry down to a bit of a matte finish. They're not smudge proof like I said before, but they are really, really, really nice. Let's talk a little bit more about this palette now. I do feel like I kind of got my thoughts out while I was using this palette, but I think that the mattes in here are quite nice. I definitely had a good time playing with them, and I think that they performed well. They did have to kind of, I don't know, I felt like I had to finesse them a little bit and kind of go back and forth and like, you know, make sure that they were layered and built up the way that I wanted them to be, but they did do what I wanted them to do in the end, which is what is the most important. As for the shimmers, I just find the shimmer formula to be very strange. I don't really love it. I felt like I had to really work it into my eyelid, and I had to use a lot of pressure to really be able to spread it out and blend it into where it is that I wanted it to be. And like, yes, I know I use glitter primer, but I do that with every shadow, and I've never had this issue before with anything else. And I could even tell just like when I swatched this palette that something was a little bit off. And I'm sad to say that it translates to how it actually performs on the lids, because I wasn't sure if it would or not, because swatches don't tell the whole story. But I feel like with this palette, swatches actually told a lot. So yeah, I don't know if I would necessarily recommend this. I mean, this is a $40 palette, and I don't think that having used it, I wouldn't spend $40 on this palette. I would maybe spend like 20, but I think 40 is a bit of a stretch, and I don't think that the quality of the shadows is worth the price. But I do think that is a really cute concept. I'm very grateful that they sent me this palette. They're probably going to hate me now, but you know what? It is what it is. This is a very honest channel, and if brands want to send me PR, that's what they're going to get. So that's gonna be my, I guess, review on this palette. I'm not sure if I'm going to do more looks with it. Probably not, but I feel like I have a pretty good idea of how I feel about this palette, enough that I don't have to do more looks to make up my mind. So take that for what you want. That's going to be my review. That's going to be my thoughts. Let me know if you've tried this brand. I would love to hear if you've tried anything from them. I will say that I do really like the highlighter though. I mean, this is beautiful. I think this is really, really nice. I'll definitely use this again. like I said, it smells delicious as well, so I'm really happy about the highlighter. The palette, could take it or leave it, but yeah, like I said, thankful to have been able to try it at least, so there's always that. Alright, so thank you so much for watching this video as always. If you want to see some other first impression videos, here's my playlist, and if you're new, I would love it if you would consider subscribing, and I will see you in my next one.